I've been looking for years for an opportunity to put Titanic back on the big screen, because that's really where it belongs. So we started to explore the idea of converting Titanic to 3D. The question was, when do we do it? And I always felt that the centenary of the real sinking would be a perfect opportunity.
Hello, welcome to What the Flick. Near, far, wherever you are, I believe that my heart will go on. And on, and that song will stay in my head for the rest of my life.
You know, everybody on YouTube now is going to be pissed because they're going to be thinking about that fucking song all fucking day.
But you know what, though? It won't leave my brain. And I don't like it, but it's still in there. Anyway, we're talking...
It's deadly that way.
It's relevant, though. We're talking about Titanic in 3D. It is Titanic in 3D. I'm Christy, this is Alonso, this is Matt. Do you want to describe to us what this movie is about?
Oh, yeah, what's this movie about? You're wondering, I'm sure, since you've never seen it before. It's about this boat that hits an iceberg and sinks. Spoiler!
But wait, this is the time it misses, though, right?
Yes, no, this is the happy ending version. That's part of the whole 3D
This is the one where Jack
conversion.
survives and Rose drowns?
Yes, it's a whole other mirror universe. Anyway,
Take
check
a
it out.
look. A big fan of movies being redone in 3D, but I would argue that if any film should be redone, it is Titanic, and if anyone should be the one doing the redoing, it is James Cameron.
Yeah, I mean, the post-conversions are sort of notoriously horrible, but you know that James Cameron is Mr. every, jot and tittle as far as making sure that it's going to be technically perfect, and it really is. It looks great. There's none of that sort of cheesy Clash of the Titans sort of, wobbly stuff going on. I don't know that the 3D adds a whole lot to it. I mean, yes, the sinking of the boat looks cooler, but the sinking of the boat always looked cool.
Right.
That was always a really amazing sequence, and just in terms of the extras and the, all the things going on, and the smokestacks falling over, and the people, doing the Poseidon adventure. So the 3D, yeah, maybe gives it a little more oomph, but it's kind of gilding the lily at best, I think.
You?
I do like that, apart from adding the 3D and apart from one element, he didn't really change anything, and it's surprising how well the effects, for the most part, hold up, I think. I like that the only thing that Cameron changed was the starscape, based on feedback he'd gotten from astrophysicists or astronomers saying when they're looking up at the star, like that's the wrong sky for that time of year on that date. And that's the only thing he changed.
But Cameron would be so anal that he would get that kind of thing right. So I'm shocked that he got that wrong.
I know, yeah. He got that email. It's like, oh my God!
I hate myself.
It's probably only a minor change,
right?
But paging George Lucas, you don't really need to make a bunch of changes
and
to a movie that worked to begin with.
And I remember there being like a couple of cheesy effect shots that could have been fixed, but I didn't even really notice them this time. Like there's some parts early on where the camera's just sort of like tracking from the front of the boat to the back of the boat, and there were times where it kind of felt like
CGI-ish.
It looked CGI-ish.
It still does.
And there's
kind
one
of.
scene
There's
where
one big aerial shot where you come across from the top to the back, and they look like little fake people.
Right, and there was one scene I thought where they're, as the ship is sinking, as they're running from the water, as they're running down the hall, as Jack and Rose are running down the hall towards the camera, and the water's coming behind them, and it looks kind of cheesy CGI face inserts on other people's bodies.
The faces did look weird at one point, you're right.
And I think that's because it was older technology that they hadn't redone,
But that said, I definitely lean towards leave it alone.
Yeah?
Rather than tweak it, just because...
You wish he hadn't done it in 3D?
I'm just saying beyond that, frankly, I think the 3D is just an excuse to get it back on the big screen, which I'm fine with.
And make more money.
And make more money.
And honestly,
that movie really needed wasn't drawing in enough. But no, I think just if to give audiences the chance to, think about it, this movie came out 15 years ago. Right. There are a lot of people under the age of 20 who probably never saw it on the big screen.
Right. And if there's a movie from the last 20 years that really should be seen on the big screen, Titanic is definitely one of them.
Yeah,
there's things on that he for whatever problems you may have with James Cameron and Avatar, with Titanic, as you watch it, like you're seeing things that outside of a big screen you don't get that same experience.
Sure.
Right? It's not the same on TV.
And and for all of its flaws that are still there. You know, the
script,
some of
the characters,
the Danny Nucci performance. I was
the Fabrizio.
Yeah, but you know what?
Everything Billy Zane does, of course.
But here's the thing: I'm watching, and I'm, like the scenes between Jack and Rose as I'm watching them, I'm thinking, this is back when Cameron could write before Avatar. Like, say what you will about this script,
the love
it's a
story,
lot better than Avatar.
The love story does work. I mean, overall, this movie works in that way that classic Hollywood movies do, where you can't pick it apart as art or great drama, but it delivers. You know, it is that great sort of studio cheeseball thing that is super effective and carries you away. And there's the period romance, and there's the disaster, and there's all this stuff going on, and it works. I mean, in the final wash, we can nitpick we can nitpick it to death, but it works. You know, people love this movie, and for a good reason. And so what I was saying before is I'm inclined to have filmmakers leave the stuff like the digital effects or whatever alone, rather than be George Lucas. Like, you know that if you buy a Carpenter's like greatest hits CD now, it is not the same thing that came out on vinyl in the 70s.
It sounds too glossy
Richard
now.
Carpenter like obsessively keeps going back and fixing and tweaking and cleaning and and it's like, you have to go back and buy the vinyl. It's the same with Star Wars. You pretty much have to cling to your VHS cassettes if you want to see the movie that came out originally that you originally fell in love with. So I say, fine, put Titanic in 3D, otherwise leave it alone and just go with it.
You were going to say something.
I have to say that I was dreading seeing this again.
Were you really?
I was. I was like, oh God, I don't want to see Titanic. I know the story. I know how it ends. I don't want to see it. I don't want to sit there for 3 hours. I for damn sure don't want to watch it in 3D for 3 hours. I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
This movie's fucking awesome. I'm going to say it.
This
movie's amazing.
And there's your blurb.
This movie is amazing. It's a spectacle in the best sense of the word. This is why this is one of those movies that it's why we go to the movies, right? Even going into it. And I think that Titanic gets a bad rap partly because of that damn song. That song, that Celine Dion song, was so ubiquitous.
Remember the radio version with the dialogue from the film?
But that's the thing, like, it was so overplayed. And
you'd hear it at the gym. Like, why are they talking now?
But that's the thing, people hate that song, and the song actually isn't in the movie.
It's not till the credits. Can I admit something? Okay, so the girlfriend that I brought with me loves Titanic, has seen it 9 times, has the double VHS collection of it. We stayed through the credits. We sang along. We had so much fun. When the key change comes, and we're like, we had so much fun. It was good and cheesy, and you could revel in the cheese. It's very, very.
Except that there's a stinger at the end now where Jack comes back above the water.
The hand comes out.
Titanic too.
No, I think this movie works on a lot of levels. The love story works. Yeah, there are problems with some of the dialogue in places. Some of the performances aren't great, but the core love story, the two things that really work great here. The core love story between Jack and Rose is very effective and very compelling. And then the tension and the disaster of the sinking, right? I think it's a measure of, this is something I thought when I first saw it. You know that boat's going to hit that iceberg, but the way it's shot, the way it's sequenced, and it's a measure, I think, of how Cameron is such a great director. He lets you hope that it's going to miss. He lets you think that it's not going to make it. Right. And even seeing it the second time, I'm like, maybe it's going to make it.
And the movie at the beginning tells you exactly what's going to happen. There's that guy who runs through the little computer diagnostic for it does this scrape, and then the water fill up in the bulkhead, and then And so when it actually happens, you already know the mechanics of what's going on, which allows Cameron to put like a lot of story beats into that sinking. Like it goes on for a long time, and a lot of stuff like she's on the boat, she's not on the boat, he's got a gun, he doesn't have a gun.
There's Rose and the Carpenter even discuss like how there's not enough lifeboats.
Right.
And so
that's a crucial
they
plot point.
They set up a lot of things that way.
In the first act, there's not enough lifeboats. And then as people are, nobody's even going to the lifeboat.
Because they're wealthy and they want to sit around and drink.
Well, and because all the hype for Titanic was this is the unsinkable ship. Like they didn't even enter their mind that, it could sink.
And yes, this is a movie that is very manipulative. There's no subtlety to this film at all, but it works. And I think it's a fantastic movie. I probably have to turn in my guy card. Like here I am talking about a movie like Titanic, which is the movie that every girl went and saw 10 times.
Because they were 14
Because they were 14 years old. You know what? This is a movie worth seeing, and it's really good.
Here's what I would say is that it's a movie that has not got an ounce of understatement in it, but the 3D conversion is really, really meticulous and detailed and fine-tuned and not gimmicky and totally immersive. It's what 3D should do. It should make things tactile and crisp and inviting. I mean, even when it's dreadful, it's still inviting. And so for that reason, I am psyched I went and saw it. I was dreading it too with you. I'm like, it's still 3 hours and 15 minutes long. I have to schlep to Burbank to go see it.
But it doesn't
I had a
feel
blast.
3 hours.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't dying to see it either, and I had a good time. And in addition to the two things that you point out that really work, I would add real quick, it really captures the experience of what it was like to be on that boat. From the lush luxury of it to the disastrous.
From first class to third class. Right?
To it sinking, all of it. Like there's a real tangible feeling of being on that vessel.
Yeah, I mean, and then like the costumes pop out in 3D. The skies pop out. Leo, young, smooth Leo, I can totally see all over again. My 14-year-old girlfriend, and then they're very cute together.
It is kind of fun watching everybody so young in this.
Right. This is a movie that made them superstars, and so to see like sexy, feisty, buxom Kate Winslet, and to see young, smooth Leo,
famous, like you and I were talking about,
Ewan Griffith on the life raft, and the guy from the British
Victor
Queer
Garber
Folk.
was in it. I'm.
We're getting as long as the movie.
I will admit. Well, it deserves it. Okay, let's do numbers. Matt Atchity.
I'm going big. I gave it a 9.
Okay.
8.8.
I'm giving it 8.5. I'm a little bit lower because you still laugh out loud at how ridiculously two-dimensionally villainous Billy Zane is, for example,
and Francis
Fisher, for example. But it's a big, good old-fashioned cheesy epic, and it knows it. So our average is 8.8. It is. So what they're doing on Rotten Tomatoes is they're combining the old original Titanic reviews with these new ones. So where is it now?
Movie.
But in the combining of the two things, though, where is it?
It hasn't really affected the score. It's still in the mid-80s. So the new reviews aren't really affecting the score in as much as it's making the same score, right? If we were to do a separate one, it's reinforcing it.
Right.
If we were to do a separate one for the 3D version, which we're not going to do, but if we were to do that, the score would be the same.
Right.
So don't pretend you're too cool. You want to go see it again. Go see it again.
It's actually not a waste of your time.
And for the dudes, take your girl, you'll get laid.